You can find the percentage of a number with your decimal knowledge that you have so far. So to do this, you need to know how to change a percent to a decimal, which is pretty easy. I'll remind you of that one. And you need to know how to multiply decimals. If you can do those two skills, you're good to go. So let's have a look. The first one says find 50% of 36. 50% is half, so we know that we're just looking for half of 36, which is 18. So we know we can actually kind of use our gut here and say, okay, 18, that's what I'm working towards. But let's use the maths to actually get there. So 50%, how do we change 50% into a decimal? Percent means out of 100, so we can move the decimal 2 to the left. So 50% is 0.50. Of actually just means multiply. So what we are looking at, instead of 50% of 36, it is going to be 0.50 times 36. And now we can use our multiplication. 36 times 0.50. Okay, 0, 3, 18. Now there was one decimal place in the whole of that question. There was 1, so I need to move the decimal in 1. So my final answer is 18, which we kind of knew was going to happen, but that's how we do it. So let's have a look at E now. So it's A there, E. 5% of 60. Okay, move that decimal 2 to the left, and it becomes 0.05. Of becomes times 60. So we've got 0.05 times 60. Now, you'll notice that I set my other multiplication up the other way. I put the decimal on the bottom. It doesn't matter. Do whichever one you feel more confident with. It's fine. We've got the placeholder 0. That whole row is going to be 0. So really all I'm doing is 60 times 5, which is going to be 300. Now, there is 2 decimal places here. There's 0 decimal places there. So the question needs to have 2 plus 0. So that means the answer needs to have 2 plus 0. So 2 decimal places there. Final answer is 3. Okay. So what we are doing, firstly, we change the percent into a decimal. Secondly, we change of to times. Thirdly, we do our decimal multiplication. Notes along the side there. Step 1, change percent to a decimal. Step 2, change of to times. Step 3, multiply. I'm going to pause now, and I would like you to try I by yourself. So I says do 15% of 880. Go ahead and try that, and I will put the solution up, and you can pause the video and see if you got the right answer. How'd you go? Did you get 132? You should multiply 0.15 by 880. Now, the next type of question I have for you is find 130% of 10. Now, that's not the right color. 130% of 10. Okay, we can do the exact same thing. 130%, that is going to be 1.3 as a decimal, so we can make that 1.3. Of, we can still change into multiply, and 10, we just keep by itself. So we have 1.3 times 10. Then we can just do that pretty simply because we've learnt how to multiply by 10 and 100 and 1,000 by moving the decimal place to the left or the right. If I'm multiplying, I'm making the number larger, which means I need to move the decimal to the right. So my final answer is going to be 13. If you were not confident to do that in your head, you could set up the times, the multiplication algorithm on the right, and you would get 130, but then there is 1 decimal place there and 0 there. Add them together, need to move in 1 decimal place, 13. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and try E now, 125% of 54. The answer should be 67.5. So you change 125% to 1.25, change of to times, and keep the 54 as normal. And when you do that multiplication, you get 67.5. So I hope you were successful with that one. The last type of example I have is those real world examples. 20% of 90 minutes, we can do the exact same thing. So 20%, I'm going to write as 0.2. Of, I'm going to write as times. 90, I will leave as 90. We do that multiplication off to the side so that we can keep our layout looking nice, and we get 18 minutes. Right, I'll leave C and E up for you, and I'll put the solutions up in a moment after you've tried them. Okay, so for C, you should have changed 30% to 0.3 of changes to times, and 150 stays the same. So you would get 45 kilos is the equivalent of 30% of 150 kilos. And E, I've put a star next to E because I would probably classify that as a complex familiar question. You need to convert 2 weeks into days, or else this question doesn't really make a lot of sense. So you would change 2 weeks into 14 days, and that means 40% of 2 weeks would equal 5.6 days. And I've shown my calculations there. Now, there is another way to do this, and that is using fractions. So that's what the other video shows. And we just want you to use whichever method you feel more confident on. Hope it helps. See you later.